Welcome back to Take Charge of Your Life. This is night 5, and our topic tonight is hope for the diabetic. And Dr. Ed Holm is with us again tonight. Welcome back, Dr. Ed.
Thank you.
Did
I
you
had
have
two
a
days
good?
vacation.
Sorry.
I got 2 days vacation.
Yeah. How was your trip for your anniversary?
Oh, Carmel was beautiful.
Tonight's topic is very important. Hope for the diabetic. We know that 50% of Americans are diabetic or pre-diabetic. So that means about half of us that are watching probably really need this presentation to improve our health. So, shall we bow our heads before we get started? Dear Heavenly Father, Lord, we thank you for those that are tuning in that are healthy, and we pray for your protection in this pandemic. Please be with those who aren't feeling so well. And I pray that you will be with us tonight. Help us to really take charge of our own health and to learn some things that or and try things that we haven't really thought of or really have kind of pushed off aside. Help us to engage those ideas for our health. In your name, amen. So, Dr. Ed, time is yours.
Okay. Well, there's a couple things I want to say. Number one is I graduated from my residency training in 1978 and well, 1977, and went out to the island of Guam. Now, that may not mean very much, but Guam has a huge population of diabetics. So it gave me an early head start on trying to help people with their diabetes. The emphasis tonight is not to scare you about diabetes, but to help you realize that there's hope and that there's things you can do. And there is good evidence that if you take it seriously, particularly if you find out you're pre diabetic, there are many things you can do that even reverse diabetes. And so the message that we want to give you tonight is one of hope, not just information and scare. For one thing, scaring doesn't usually motivate people very long. Once they're not scared, then they're not motivated. So what we'd like you to do is know that the most important person in this is you, because your choices and how serious you take it on is the most important. Sometimes people think, well, the doctor will help me take care of my diabetes. No, we see you once every 3 months. So just it's just not depending on the doctor to take care of it. You have to become educated and well informed. So I'm going to start sharing the screen here. This is the one I want. The focus on this presentation is hope for diabetics. And the reason there's hope is there's things that you can do and you can reverse it and you can improve it and you can reduce the complications of it. So there really is hope as long as you pay attention and you take responsibility. Diabetes, there's two main kinds we call type 1 and type 2. Type 1 is actually an autoimmune disease. The pancreas doesn't produce insulin at all. It has nothing to do with your weight. It has nothing to do with lifestyle, really. It's an attack on your pancreas, so it doesn't produce insulin. And that's why it's found in kids that were healthy, and then something happens and something attacks the pancreas, and then they're on insulin almost right away. And frequently they almost have an emergency because they get so sick that they can't stand up or they go and become unconscious. So that's a whole different group of diabetics that we call type 1. There's also a group that don't make enough insulin, partly because the requirement is higher when you have resistance. And when you're overweight and you're not taking care of yourself with exercise, there is a higher amount of resistance. So your body makes extra insulin for a while, and then it peters out and can't keep up. So this is a review of those types. Type 1, the autoimmune, and they are insulin dependent from the beginning. They require insulin. Whereas in type 2 may require insulin, but it's usually a process of years of having diabetes, and gradually the body gives up and tires out. It doesn't make enough. So we call it non-insulin dependent or type 2. And our focus tonight is mainly on the type 2. It's more common. It is something that lifestyle can make a major difference in. Now, some people wonder if it's really that important. Well, there's over 30 million diabetics, and there's more than that now because this statistic is from 2014. It's 6 years old. And the bigger group is what we call pre-diabetics. Pre-diabetics their blood sugars aren't as high, and their body is keeping up. But we call this group pre-diabetics, and their risk of becoming diabetic is very high. And this is a group that lifestyle can make a major difference. And as it says here, 90 to 95% of adult diabetics are this type 2. A couple things to add here. You may be thinking, I'm overweight and I don't exercise. I already have high blood sugar levels. Is there any hope? There definitely is. In fact, sometimes I like to take on those people that aren't paying any attention at all, are drinking their 3 and 4 major sodas every day, because I know if they'll cut out their soda and lose some weight and exercise, their blood sugars will come down a lot. Now, we call these risk factors. Risk factors means that you're more likely to be diabetic if you have this. It doesn't mean you're diabetic, but you're more likely to become diabetic. So being overweight is one of them. Also, we call it midsection fat. That's the person with the apple shape fat. It's on the abdomen. It's more common in men. Women tend to have a little bit more adiposity at their hips. We call that the pear shape. Well, the midsection fat is actually higher risk for diabetes. And being sedentary, meaning you're not doing much exercise at all and you're not eating a healthy diet, those are all we call modifiable, meaning you can make a difference. You can change them. Another group of risk factors that add to the complications of diabetes is high blood pressure and high triglycerides. They may not make you diabetic, but if you're diabetic and you have these other factors, they add to the risks for heart disease, particularly and stroke. And being a smoker is very bad for your health in many, many ways, including adding to the resistance to insulin, meaning that your body has to make more insulin to keep up. So what are some of the risk factors? Again, one of the things that we focus on in diabetics is what is going to happen in the future. And frequently people are not very impressed because they don't feel very different when you tell them they're diabetic. It's the future that's the problem. And 10 to 20 years down the line, there is way more kidney failure. In fact, the majority of people that are on dialysis are diabetics. The majority of people that have problems with bleeding into their eyes and having blindness are diabetics. Amputations are much higher. That's the term we use when you have to cut off a limb. And dementia is worse because the artery disease is worse. So being diabetic makes you at a higher risk. In fact, the diabetic has like 50% higher chance of a heart attack than the non-diabetic. So it's very high risk for that. Now, when we see somebody that is pre-diabetic, diabetic, we have a routine of checking them once a year for kidney problems. So we do a test on their urine called a microalbumin. We also want them to see their eye doctor every year, because what happens in the back of the eye can be prevented with laser treatment. So we ask people to be sure to see their eye doctor every year. And if they have a change in their vision, we want them to be seen sooner. And then we also are needing to keep up with their cholesterol numbers as well, because all those things add up and cause their more medical complications. So we ask people to be seen and examined to look for those risk factors, and also to help them get an early head start on any of the complications. Two of the most powerful steps you can take toward preventing and treating diabetes are daily exercise and a high fiber diet. Seems like we've heard that over and over again, this high fiber diet and daily exercise. We heard about that, at least for those that want to lose weight, that's important. And also for stress reduction, the daily exercise is important. But for treating diabetics, the body starts paying more attention to the insulin that your body makes when you start losing some weight. And when you reduce the resistance, then the insulin your body's making is used more optimally. So even if you only lose 5 pounds or 10 pounds, it's amazing how much your sugars will improve. So we're going to focus on the diet of diabetics. Is this a healthy diet? Is it an exciting diet?
Oh, it's exciting, yeah.
It looks like white bread to me.
I mean, it's 3 tiers. That's very exciting.
I know some of these places advertise their triple decker. Well,
it kind of looks like it's chicken. That's supposed to be kind of healthy, right?
it's better than beef, I guess, but there's even better diets.
Yeah.
So let's take a look. I don't want you to start working on your shopping list right now, because this is trying to tell you these are the things to stay away from. So a diet that's low in fiber is a high meat diet has very little fiber. So you're in trouble there already. And meat and high fat dairy products like fried food are also bad for you, and sugary drinks are like drinking, it's like drinking sugar. And these are all things that are not your friend if you're trying to improve your diet and you're trying to pay attention to your diabetic condition. Someone called it the chips, chops, and lollipops eating style. So we kind of make fun of it, but it's not funny. We're going to move to the next slide and talk about, yes.
I mean, I didn't eat any of that stuff ever.
Can you cheat sometimes and have some of it?
Yeah, that's my question.
Which one do you want?
The chocolate. The chocolate's jumping out at me.
Yeah. Well, what I tell people, if you reward yourself with a sugar dessert once a week, you probably can get by with it. It's having it every day that's bad for you. But having it once a week, if you're controlling yourself the rest of the week and you've added exercise, you probably can manage, even if it's a chocolate chip. Okay, we're going to talk about the face of prevention and recovery, and nutrition is our first one here. So we talked about the bad things, and you saw that slide. Now we're going to start focusing on the good things, the things that you can put um, more of in your diet. And it seems like beans have been getting a lot of attention recently because they are high fiber, and that the fiber allows the sugar as it's going through your system to be absorbed more slowly so that the sugar doesn't go up as high in your blood when you have fiber. So adding beans is a good way of doing that because you get the fiber and it's healthy as far as protein goes. There's a Dr. Hall who wrote a book called 9 Ways to Prevent Diabetes. It says beans, peas, and lentils contain the most fiber of any food group, running as high as 10 to 15 grams per serving. So the legumes provide are plant-based, which you're going to hear again, and they tend to not be very expensive, and they're an excellent source of protein. Bottom line, they're good for you. And then on the grains, the best grains are those that we call whole grains. In other words, they haven't been refined. Brown rice has more than twice the fiber of white rice and 6 times as much magnesium. So taking the shell off the rice is removing some of the nutrients and the fiber. And then steel cut oats is better than quick oats. And it says here, after breakfast blood sugars of volunteers who ate whole grains was 40% lower than those who ate refined grains. So, we tend to point out the things that you can't have, and then the more you focus on the things you can't have, the more you want them. But these are things that you can have more of because they're healthy for you and they don't really increase your sugar, and they're good. They're a good balance. So we talked about fiber in your beans and whole grains, but there's also vegetables that have fiber. So the green vegetables, the kale, the broccoli, the squashes, they tend to have more fiber. Corn is not a bad one, but it tends to be a little more starchy than some of the others. Talking about looking for bright colors. So the bright colors are the red peppers, and the crunchy vegetables are the good ones for you. Now we're going to talk about berries. Now the advantage of berries is they have what we call antioxidants in them. So antioxidants help protect your blood vessels. So the berries are really good for that, and we've been picking blueberries this last couple months, and I've had so many blueberries. We put them in waffles, we put them in pancakes, we put them in on our cereal in the morning. We've had lots of blueberries, but they're good for you. So what, I guess they're asking me to get your input here. What of this group do you particularly like? What do you enjoy about the berries and the greens?
I love the blueberries. Blueberries are so versatile, and they're so sweet that it really helps with my sweet tooth. But I could put blueberries on just about anything, and I love them just frozen. I just eat them like a frozen dessert.
We've been bringing them home and putting them on a tray and freezing them, and then once they're individually frozen, you can put them together, and then they don't all stick together and make a big coagulated mess. Sometimes if you put them all in a bag at one time and freeze them at that time, then they're all stuck, and you're sitting there with a chisel trying to get your blueberries out. But if you freeze them first and then put them on a tray and then put them in the bag, then they're you can use them. We just bring out a few, and they last, and they add color, and they're really tasty. And we usually get plenty of strawberries around our house too. In fact, I just went to get 3 more little baskets yesterday because we were getting low on strawberries.
Another thing that I find, I started eating brown rice, and I really love brown rice. I could, it's completely different texture, and I like that really like solid food feeling.
Yeah, I think we talked about how it takes 10 at least 10 times trying something before you get to the point where you say, "Whoa, that's really good." Um, not everything's that way. I mean, a berry is good, but on some things that you're so used to having white rice or you're used to having oatmeal or cereal in a certain way, don't give up just because the first time you tasted it you weren't sure that it was that good for you. But it does. Um, it gets to the point where you actually, for me, I don't even touch white bread because it just doesn't have much texture, and I know it's not as good for me as well. Okay, the next thing is omega 3s. Now, omega 3 is the fat that is in walnuts and in almonds and flaxseed, and these are particularly good for antioxidants as well. Um, they help your, if a handful of nuts every day has been shown to protect you from heart disease. So that's a good thing. And we live where there's plenty of nuts, not just the ones in trees, but also the ones in trees. So soybeans, there's something called edamame. It's the Japanese kind of eat them raw, and that's actually quite good, except they usually put a lot of salt on them. And omega canola oil also has a lot of omega 3. So we're talking about the things that are good for you: fiber, beans, whole grains, fruits, and berries, and omega 3. And our last one here is monosaturated, which are the good oils. So avocado, olives, olive oil, and nuts are a good source of oil. Some people say, well, I supposed to stay away from all oils. No, these have beneficial effects. So having a handful is not bad for you at all.
When we did Diabetes Undone recently, I remember them saying that we could eat as many olives as we, well, almost as many olives as we'd like to have, and I thought that was very liberating. I
Yeah,
love olives, and to be able to munch as a bunch of them, I love that.
yeah. Unfortunately, sometimes I open a can and I never get around to sharing them with anybody. So they are good for you and they are good to eat. So olives, avocados, olive oil contain healthy monosaturated fats, and nuts and seeds are good sources of fiber. We're kind of reviewing everything. Almonds, for example, contain 3.5 grams of fiber per serving. Sunflower seeds have 4 grams per serving, and serving of these things is about an ounce or a handful. So healthy fats lowers stress, improves your cholesterol, blood pressure, and it also improves, in some studies, the risk for dementia. So we have all those good things that we are actually, I have to tell people because sometimes a diabetic will come in and say, I can't do anything about my diabetes because my wife does the cooking, and the male is the diabetic, and he kind of feels like he can't do anything. But this diet is actually better for everyone. So rather than say diabetics have this special diet, well, yeah, they do have to watch their carbs. They do have to be more careful. But what they're supposed to be eating, plant-based, natural foods, is actually the best diet for all of us. So I sometimes tell the wife that's there, just eat the same food as he does. Don't have to make special food just for him. Okay. Let's see, Shelley's off mute, so I don't know if she's.
Sorry, what was that?
No, I saw you off mute, so I thought, well, maybe you were getting ready to tell us something.
Oh, that was earlier. I just mentioning when you were talking about the berries that I recently had done strawberries that same way that you mentioned. Freeze them on the cookie sheet, and then once they're frozen, put them in the bag. It was a trick my mother taught me years ago.
Yeah, and if you decide, you can blend them up with a banana, and it makes a good smoothie.
We use a lot of, I use the frozen strawberries both in our smoothies and also when I make cold fruit soup. I will often use them, not always, but often.
Yeah, I love cold soup. That sounds like it would hit this. It would hit a spot in this 100-degree temperature we're enjoying. All
Yeah.
right. Um, so the summary: eat good food the way it was grown, and don't overeat, but eat. Almost can get by with eating as much plant-based foods as you want. Careful with the starches. Okay, we're going to move from what we eat to exercise. And regular exercise is key important for improving your diabetic and controlling your diabetes. The reason I make the distinction is pre-diabetics can avoid becoming diabetics by exercising. But a diabetic who is on medication can keep his sugars down lower with less medication by adding exercise regularly. Exercise improves your energy, your mood, reduces fatigue and depression, and it puts you in a good state of mind. So, some of you that may be listening to this later will realize some of the principles here are the same as what we heard when we went through the Diabetes Undone class, because they're promoting walking for about 10 minutes after your meals in order to avoid get the blood sugar climbing. And I had several people say that made the biggest difference. They were already careful with their diet, they were already exercising, but they were doing their exercise at a different time. But by adding some exercise for 10 minutes after your meal, that really helps.
I think that um,
Go ahead.
but I think that's probably the biggest thing that I got out of that class is that to exercise after eating. So I am actually really trying to be very careful about, or that, I plan it. I'm going to take a walk after I eat. I'm going to eat before I go out, and to keep the sugars from going way too high.
It does make a difference. I had people, a couple things that have made the biggest difference for my patients. One of them is giving up sodas, because some of them were drinking these 16-ounce huge bottles, four of them a day, and they just make that one change. And then the other change is like losing 5 to 10 pounds. That would make a big difference. And then, as Karen, you're mentioning exercising after your meals, that helps more than you'd expect. This is talking about aerobic, meaning where you're getting your heart rate up. So walking, swimming, cycling. And since 80% of type 2 diabetics are overweight, regular exercise helps them lose weight, and losing weight helps the insulin work better, so that they are helping their sugar as well as helping their emotional needs as well. Now, this program put this slide in here twice, so I don't know what the purpose was, but it does ask me to ask you, what kind of exercise do you like to do?
For me, I prefer walking.
And there must be some reasons behind that as well, Shelley.
I think for one, it doesn't jar me as much as jogging, running. So it's easier on my knees. And I think another thing is I enjoy being out in the fresh air and out in nature. And so it's a way to combine both exercise and where I like to be.
Yeah, one of the things about exercise, it's nice when it's something you like to do. So if it's something that gives you joy and enjoyment, it's one less excuse to exercise. The last couple of months, Barb and I have been walking 2 miles about 5 to 6 days a week. And Barb's so tuned in that she will not let me have an excuse. And it also gives us time to talk together. And we end up usually coming back home on our last half mile. We're usually praying for our families and our church. So it gives us time to pray and we can talk. The other thing is going to the gym takes so much time to change clothes and drive there and then get out and then get back in and then get back in the car. You can be exercising for about 20 minutes during the time you're driving. So I find going to the gym, especially as I've gotten older and I don't look as handsome, it's easier to just go for a walk. So Kara, you were going to say something about your favorite exercise.
Well, I also love to walk, and now I have a big dog that really keeps me going, and she has to walk, so we do a lot of walking together. It's nice to have a partner, like you were talking about. You walk with your wife. Now I have a dog that walks me. Really, she keeps me pulls sailing behind her. But I also love, and I don't get to do it enough. I love to play volleyball.
Oh,
I'm terrible at it, but I love to play it, and it's fun to do it as a team. And that's just one of the things that I really enjoy doing. And this last weekend, my husband picked up a weight bench, so we're going to get buff around here.
oh,
So we put together a weight bench, and that's something that he really enjoys to do. So
we will recognize you next time.
I might might be benching 250 here shortly.
No, I think that for me, a little bit of variety. I have a bike that I haven't had down for a year and a half, and I keep thinking I got to get that bike down because it is a little speedier. It's a different kind of exercise, but also I haven't found the perfect seat yet. So the, anyway, the other question they ask us to talk about is what do you do when there's bad weather? It's usually it's too hot or it's too wet or it's raining or something. We always have some sort of excuse. What do you do on those days?
Treadmill. The treadmill keeps me going. And I
Okay.
also like to do Pilates with like YouTube videos. Pilates, it's something that it really helps my back. I have back issues. Pilates is very helpful for that.
Well, thanks for sharing those. The thing is to have an idea, a plan, so when the weather isn't perfect, you have a substitute that you can put into your schedule. Okay, I'm going to move to the next slide. This has to do with these 5 pound, 6 pound weights. I used to kind of laugh at those things. I said, "What's the purpose? What good are they doing?" Well, when you move your muscles, you actually improve the ability for sugar to get into your muscles. So it's an insulin-like effect. So it's not insulin, but it helps to move sugar into the muscles where it can be used. So there's value in just these muscle contractions to lower your sugar. A little technical here is that the glucose transporters from the cell move from the interior to the membrane. Therefore, they can get the sugar into the cell. So it's worthwhile doing these things, even though you may not be quite as buff. The repetitive motion, muscle contraction, does help lower sugar. Okay, regular exercise. increases the total number of cell glucose transporters and produces a stronger insulin signaling effect in the muscle cell. So even if you're not building up your muscles, it is good for your to move the sugar out of the blood and into the cells where it can be used, and it helps your blood tests improve, which is the test your doctor is going to be asking you about. It's called a hemoglobin A1C, and it's an average of 2.5 months of your blood sugars. So that test is the one we follow every 3 months to see if your sugars are staying in range. And things we're talking about here today are helpful to lower that A1C down to 7 or 6.5, somewhere in that range. Increased insulin sensitivity is seen with short and long-term physical activity, reduces the need for insulin, lowers blood sugar levels. All good for you. Another thing is during and after exercise, skeletal muscles have greater sensitivity to insulin, and this can last several hours and up to 2 days. So some people focus their exercise on whether they lose weight. If they don't lose weight, they decide they're not going to exercise anymore. I tell them it's not the weight, it is being in shape. And when you're in better shape, even though the weight's the same or sometimes even goes up, the blood sugars will improve. And this effect isn't just a 1 hour effect that's going to last for days. The other important thing is to stay hydrated. For some people, they're thinking they're hungry and their body's needing water. So one of the ways to reduce your appetite when you shouldn't be eating so much is to be sure you're well hydrated. And that doesn't mean energy drinks. We're going to be talking about energy drinks tomorrow. It's about being buzzed. So stay tuned for that talk.
Ed,
Yes.
isn't one of the symptoms of diabetes excessive thirst?
Yes. Good observation. The diabetes that's out of control, very high sugars, 4 and 500. Your body starts draining the fluids along with the sugar as it's getting rid of the high sugars. So it's going down into the kidneys and it brings water with it. So we call it polyuria, polydipsia, meaning you're very thirsty and you keep drinking. So that you want to be, this talk is focused on prevention, so you want to be drinking plenty so you don't get dehydrated. But at the same time, if you're just can't catch up with your thirst, the more you drink, you seem to get more and more thirsty. It's a good idea to check your blood sugar and be sure your sugars aren't out of control.
So if I understand you correctly, the body uses water as like a transport vehicle to get the sugar out.
Yeah. What I tell patients is the sugar can't come out as a sugar cube. It comes out to the kidney and it takes water with it. And the higher the sugar, it's more like a sponge. It pulls water along with it. So it actually increases your thirst. All right, so they want you to be sure that you work with your health provider. The reason for this is several. Number one is most of the time your doctor's going to be so excited about you doing something about your diabetes, they're going to applaud you and be happy to reduce your medicines. The other thing is, if you haven't been paying attention to your diet and exercise, your sugars can drop when you start doing things right. And then you can start getting lightheaded and dizzy and pass out even. So it's a good idea to be monitoring yourself is what I prefer, but then also let your physician, nurse practitioner know what you're doing so that they can be aware and can make the right adjustments. So most of the time they're going to be so excited that you are learning all these things, and it's actually amazing how in the last 10 years it's become the the main care of diabetics is turned over to plant-based lifestyle rather than focusing on the latest drug and the combination of drugs. So this is, you will not, most physicians will not scold you for doing this. So these are the keys we're reviewing now. High fiber, plant-based diet. You notice all the beans, like 4 kinds of beans in this thing. And daily exercise, water instead of calorie-rich drinks, adequate sleep, and stress management. All these to help control your diabetes. So there is hope. As we focused on this from the beginning, it is possible to make major improvements in your diabetes. And in the final result of that is to feel better and to avoid the complications. So sometimes we need some encouragement, and that encouragement comes with connecting with others, trusting God, staying focused, and keeping at it. Don't give up. I was reading and preparing for this. Someone said you need to be like a postage stamp. You stick on until you get there. So you don't fall off. You keep on focusing, keep on keeping at it. I can do, this is a text from Philippians 4:13 that's very important for all of us. I can do everything God asks me to do with the help of Christ who gives me the strength and the power. So we're not on our own. We can ask for help from those around us that are also working on their diabetes, but you can also get focus from God, who is there to be your guide and your helper. We kind of got off to a little bumpy start there at the beginning. Thank you for hanging in there. Any other insights? It's really, when we did our Diabetes Undone class, the rewarding thing to me was those people that got up after 2 or 3 weeks and had success stories to tell us. And that encourages other people who having a little harder time. So one of these days we may be doing Diabetes Undone again. And that's designed for people that are well aware that they're diabetics already, or they know they're pre-diabetic.
You mentioned stress can cause a problem with your sugar. Can you explain how that works? I mean, is that
the theory on it is this. There's a stress hormone called cortisol. And cortisol peaks in the morning when you first get up. It's kind of like the part of your internal clock tells the adrenal gland to get going, and it puts out a surge, which is good to wake up in the morning. But that hormone, cortisol, increases your blood sugar. So if you're under constant stress, not just waking up in the morning, and your cortisol levels are high all the time, it will keep your blood sugars extremely high. I know some people who go through things like divorce and things like that, the major stressors, and their sugars will go way out of control because of the chronic stress. So it does factor into it, and it's important to do what you can to find healthy ways of dealing with that stress, because it will bump your sugars up and make it harder to control.
Well, I know we're going to be talking about the buzz of beverages tomorrow. I'm looking forward to that. I know someone who is diabetic, someone near to me, who truly believes that drinking a decaffeinated, sugar-free drink, Coca-Cola, sugar-free Coca-Cola, is going to be okay for them. So I'd be interested to hear what you say about that tomorrow and how that affects the body.
I'll freshen up on it. I do know that the diabetic drinks, or the artificial sweetened drinks, have been shown to cause more problems with diabetes than if you have the regular sugar drinks. So it's a little bit not intuitive. It's a surprise when we found out that there's an increase in diabetic later on if they've been drinking the. So water's still best. The artificially sweetened drinks don't help you much with your sugar as you think, and going the other way and just drinking regular. And the issue I think we're going to be talking about tomorrow is caffeine as well.
I also gave my husband one of those naked drinks. I called Naked, where it has like all the fruits and vegetables in it. It was a green juice. I gave it the little one to him over the weekend, and he looked at the back and said, "Wow, this has a lot of carbs in it."
Yeah. Yes.
So maybe I shouldn't have done that.
Well, it depends on whether you want them around for a while or not.
Well, it's supposed to be healthy.
Yeah, I know.
Well, thank you for being with us tonight, Dr. Ed. And
All right.
we will be back here tomorrow night again, Tuesday night, with the buzz on beverages, and be talking more about the beverages tomorrow night. And we'll be here at 7 o'clock. Join us on Zoom. And as you can see, we like to have a conversation here. So we do encourage you to join us on Zoom. And we will see you tomorrow. Let's have prayer before we go. Dear Heavenly Father, thank you for making our amazing bodies and giving us such a wide variety of fruits and vegetables and ways to stay healthy. And we pray that those who are tuning in tonight will try to be just a little bit healthier tomorrow. In your name, amen.
Amen.
Good night.
See you tomorrow.
Have a good night.